Unshaken, the true story of Karoly Takács, the man who refused to quit. Here, the bullet that changed everything. They say champions are made, not born. But what happens when a champion loses everything? So what happens when the very hand you trained for decades is gone in a flash? Would you give up? So or would you do what Karoly Takács did? Makes the impossible possible. This is not just a sports story. It is the story of unshakable willpower, brutal pain, undying hope, and a victory that stunned the entire world. It is the story of a soldier and a dreamer and a survivor, a man who taught the world how to fight even with one hand. Here, the rising star. The year was 1938. In the Hungarian military barracks, one name echoed among the pistol shooting circles: Karoly Takács. He wasn't just good, he was the best marksman Hungary had ever seen. So Karoly was already a national hero. He had won every national pistol shooting championship in Hungary. His hands were steady, his eyes sharp, and his focus unbreakable. People called him a machine in human form. And now his dream was finally within reach. The 1940 Summer Olympics. All of Hungary believed that Karoly will bring us gold. So did Karoly. He wasn't dreaming. He was preparing, training day and night with with his pistol, perfecting every breath, every squeeze of the trigger. He was a man with one goal, to become an Olympic champion. The explosion that shattered dreams. One day in 1938, while participating in military training exercises, disaster struck. Karoly was in an army camp, preparing like any other day, but as fate would have it, during a routine exercise, defective hand grenade exploded in his right hand. In a second, everything changed. His shooting hand, his dominant hands, his life's instrument was totally destroyed. His right hand was gone. Doctors tried their best, but the damage was irreversible. So Karoly's shooting career was over, or so the world thought. The news spread quickly that Karoly Takács loses hand in accident, career finished. So his competitors sighed in relief, his fans mourned, and his country wept. But Karoly, he didn't cry, he didn't complain, he didn't even stop. While the world saw tragedy, Karoly saw a challenge. That left-handed here, while most would fall into depression, Karoly disappeared from the public eye. People assumed he had retired. What they didn't know, what that Karoly had started training again, secretly, privately, but this time with his left hand. No announcement, no interview, and no pity. He locked himself away from the world and began the painful process of retraining himself from the scratches. He had to learn how to write, eat, clean, and aim with the opposite hand. It wasn't just about muscle memory, it was like being born again. He didn't even tell his closest friend what he was doing. His hands bled, his body screamed in pain. He failed hundreds of times, but every failure was followed by this one sentence in his mind: that I may have lost my hand, but not my aim, not my dream. The comeback no one saw coming. 1 year later, in 1939, Hungary held its national shooting championship. To everyone's surprise, that Karoly showed up. People were totally stunned. They thought he came to support the new shooters. Some greeted him warmly, assuming he had, come to, spectate. So one shooter even said, "It's an honor to have you here, sir. It's an honor to have you here, sir. You are a real inspiration." Karoly smiled. Then he replied that, "I haven't come to watch, I have come to compete you." So, there was silence, complete. With what hand? With what hand? But Karoly wasn't joking. He registered. He stepped, onto the range. He lifted his pistol with his left hand, and everyone held their breath. Shot after shot, we'll say here, Karoly beat every single competitors, using the hand that was never meant for shooting. He didn't just win, he shocked the world. The crowd roared, the media exploded. and suddenly, Karoly Takács was back from the dead. But Karoly wasn't done. His eyes were still fixed on Olympic gold. The cruel twist, of fate here. As Karoly, regained his national fame, the 1940 Olympics approached. He was in the best shape of his life. His left hand had, become as, deadly as his right once was. This was it. His dream was finally about to be realized. But fate had other plans due to the outbreak of the World War II. Due to the outbreak of World War II, the 1940 Olympic was totally cancelled. His dream shattered again. Karoly didn't complain. He said only one thing, that then I will wait and I will be ready. He began preparing for the 1944 Olympics, but history repeated itself. It was dragged on. The 1944 Olympics were also cancelled. Once again, his golden opportunity vanished. Now in his late 30s, most people expected him to give up. You are too late, too old. You are too old. There is no chance now. Find peace. Let it go. But Karoly wasn't listening. He was training. The victory of a warrior, in 1948, after 2 Olympics, cycles were cancelled, the world finally came together again in London for the Summer Olympics. Karoly Takács, now 38 years, stood on the shooting line once again. Youngster athletes surrounding him, fitter, faster, and with both hands. But Karoly had something, that didn't fire pain and purpose. He loaded his pistol with his left hand, and when the competition began, he delivered every shot like thunder. Bang, bullseye, bang, bullseye, right? So here, he didn't just perform well, he won. Karoly Takács became the Olympic gold medalist in rapid fire, pistol shooting with his non-dominant hand at 38 years old, after losing his shooting hand, after 2 cancelled Olympic dreams, after a war. The stadium stood up and applauded. The world was stunned. It was one of the greatest comebacks in the history of sports. One more for glory. 4 years later, in 1952, at the age of 42, Karoly competed again, in the Helsinki Olympics. The same question arose: will he retire? Now Karoly answered, it is the only way. He knew no. By winning again, he secured his second Olympic gold medal, providing that, greatness isn't measured, totally not measured by youth or ability, but by willpower, resilience, and heart. A legacy etched in steel. Karoly Takács retired as one of the most inspiring Olympic athletes of all time. He had no right hand. He had no right hand. He had no support in beginning. He had every reason to quit, but he chose to fight. He chose to adapt. He chose to win. His life taught the world, that you can lose everything, but as long as you don't lose hope, you can still rise, right? You can still rise. The world may doubt you, but if you believe, nothing can stop you. Victory is not given, it is earned in silence, through pain and with persistence. Excuses are easy. Fight is hard. Winners choose the hard way. So the final verdicts and the final word is what, that your turn now. You might be broken. You might be hurting. Maybe life has, thrown grenades your way too. But remember, Karoly, if he could rebuild, his dream with one hand, you can rebuild your life with your both hand. Don't quit. Don't stop. Keep aiming. Keep fighting. Keep going, because your gold medal moment is still ahead. So yeah.